Long before smartphones, theaters, or glowing screens, stories flickered to life by firelight. People spoke them into the night, weaving, remembering, and reshaping them as embers danced. Stories became warmth for the spirit. They soothed, delighted, and endured, passing lessons from one generation to the next. Step into this course called Fairy Tales from Grimm's to Disney, a course that opens the door to one of humanity's oldest storytelling traditions. This is more than a class on children's tales. It is a journey through culture, psychology, history, fear, beauty, and imagination, told through stories you may think you know from childhood or Disney films. But trust me, the real stories are still waiting to surprise you. My name is Dr. Jacob Norberg from the German Language and Literature Department here at Duke. I will be your professor, and I will be your guide through shadowy forests, dazzling yet perilous castles, and stories that have journeyed across centuries to find us. Together, you will follow fairy tales from their raw, haunting origins to their sparkling, to the musical retellings in the world of Disney. Where do the fairy tales come from, and how have they been shaped by their history? How are fairy tales composed or structured? What do they seek to tell us, or what ideas and values do they represent and convey? How have they been used to entertain young and old, socialize children, unify cultures, encourage and console the needy? You'll begin with familiar figures, Cinderella, Snow White, Hansel and Gretel, and Little Red Riding Hood. But first, you will encounter them as they appeared in the Grimm's earliest collections, tales forged by hardship, folklore, and the struggle to survive. These versions do not flinch from fear or violence. They reveal what people once believed it took to withstand the world. Then, you will watch these same stories transform, softened, and reimagined for new generations. Disney does not erase the Grimms. It adds new colors to their tapestry. It uncovers something deeper, the way each culture reshapes stories to mirror its own hopes, fears, and dreams. As the weeks unfold, this course becomes more than a reading list. It transforms into a living conversation. You will explore the architecture of fairy tales, how heroes and heroines rise, why so many paths twist through forests, and why beauty and terror are always entwined. You will discover what draws us to chilling stories and why we sometimes cherish even the darkest tales. Fairy tales are not simple, and this course doesn't treat them that way. You'll engage with scholars from across disciplines, folklorists, historians, psychologists, anthropologists, each offering a different lens for understanding why these stories endure. From Vladimir Prop's structural analysis, to Bruno Bettelheim's psychological interpretations, to feminist critiques and modern reinterpretations, you'll learn how meaning is built and challenged over time. You'll write. You'll reflect. You'll create. Creative and scholarly papers invite you to apply what you've learned, whether by reimagining a tale or building an argument grounded in careful reading and research. Group projects and discussions turn the classroom into a shared storytelling space because fairy tales were never meant to be experienced alone. This course requires careful reading and active participation. The readings are essential, and lectures build directly on them. Attendance matters. Fairy tales may bend reality, but deadlines do not. Assignments must be submitted on time, typed, double-spaced, and with names clearly displayed. Late work, without prior approval, won't receive comments or grades. Participation is strongly encouraged, and thoughtful discussion is part of your learning journey. Consider setting laptops aside so your attention stays where it belongs, on the stories and the conversation unfolding around you and your classmates. Your final grade reflects both knowledge and engagement. You'll be assessed not just on what you know, but on how clearly and thoughtfully you communicate it, how well you understand the tales, the scholarship, and the ideas behind them. Over 15 weeks, you'll move from ancient oral traditions to modern film, from romantic nationalism to contemporary retellings, from Grimm to Disney and beyond. You'll discover that fairy tales are not frozen in time. They evolve because we do. Week 1, Introduction, Course Objectives and Requirements, Summary. Week 2, Initial Explorations, Famous Fairy Tales. Readings, Ashpuddle, Cinderella, 21 in the Book, Cinderellas, Modern Cinderella Translation, Guiding Questions. Week 3, Initial Explorations, Famous Fairy Tales. Readings, Snow White, 53, Hansel and Gretel, 15, Max Luthi on the Style of Fairy Tales, Guiding Questions. Initial Explorations, Famous Fairy Tales. Readings, The Frog King, 1, and the first Frog King version from 1812. Rumpelstiltskin, 55, Briar Rose, Sleeping Beauty, 50, Little Red Cap, Little Red Riding Hood, 26. Max Luthi on the Style of Fairy Tales, 2, Guiding Questions. Week 4, Definitions, What is a Fairy Tale, and what are genres? Readings, Guiding Questions, Genre Samples, Myth, Legend, and Fable. Tales from Grimm's, Tales 2, 58, 139, 89, 121, 526. Topics in Fairy Tales, Heroes and Heroines. Readings, Tales 9, 11, 17, 20, 25, 27, 37, 49, 62. Guiding Questions and Posting Instructions. Test I. Week 5, Topics in Fairy Tales, Beauty and Splendor. Readings, Tales 6, 12, 22, 52, 135, 153, 188, 191. Additional readings on beauty. Guiding Questions. Topics in Fairy Tales, Horror and Violence. Readings, Tales 31, 40, 44, 46, 47, 185, Bluebeard. Additional readings on horror. Guiding Questions. Topics in Fairy Tales, The Journey Through the Forest. Readings, Tales 65, 108, 136, 169, 199th. Guiding Questions. Topics in Fairy Tales, Wonder, Magic, Miracle, Enchantment. Readings, 36, 69, 88, 133, 197. Excerpts from J.R.R. Tolkien and G.K. Chesterton. Guiding Questions. Historical Background, Folklore and Cultural Identity in the Romantic Era. Readings, Maria Tatar, Folklore and Cultural Identity. Marina Warner, Voices on the Page. List of major works of Brothers Grimm. Guiding questions. Historical background, The Brothers Grimm. Readings, the prefaces to the Grimm collection, Siegfried Neumann, The Brothers Grimm as collectors and editors of German folktales. Guiding questions. The Brothers Grimm and literature for children. Readings, Tales 3, 4, 24, 29, 43, 78, 79, 117, 200. Statements by J.R.R. Tolkien and Jacqueline Rose. Preparation for coming sessions. Maria Tatar, Facts and Fantasy, The Art of Reading Fairy Tales. Guiding questions. Approaches to fairy tales. The culture of storytelling. Readings, Walter J. Ong, Orality and Literacy. Guiding questions. Approaches to fairy tales. Psychoanalytic interpretations. Readings, Bruno Bettelheim, The Uses of Enchantment. Guiding questions. Approaches to fairy tales. History and fairy tales. Readings, Robert Darnton, Peasants Telling Tales. Guiding questions. Approaches to fairy tales. The fundamental structure of fairy tales. Readings, Vladimir Propp, The Morphology of the Folktale. Guiding questions. Approaches to fairy tales. Feminist critiques of fairy tales. Readings, Karen Rowe, Feminism and Fairy Tales. Guiding questions. Class meets in the Rubenstein Library, West Campus. Approaches to fairy tales and copyright. Readings, essays by Vladimir Hafstein and others. Guiding questions. The literary fairy tale, romantic fairy tales. Readings, Ludwig Tieck, The Fair Egbert. Guiding questions. The literary fairy tale, H.C. Andersen. Readings, Tales from the Stories of H.C. Andersen. Guiding questions. The literary fairy tale, George Eliot. Readings, Silas Marner. Guiding questions. Contemporary fairy tales, Anne Sexton, J.K. Rowling and others. Readings, poems, short stories, and modern tales. Guiding questions. Disney fairy tales, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, 1937. Guiding questions. Disney fairy tales, Sleeping Beauty, 1959, Maleficent, 2014. Guiding questions. Class meets in the Rubenstein Library, West Campus.